there lived a man named Odian. He was a father of 5 and a loving husband to his wife. If you were known as a hard-working farmer, Odian had tilled the land for years, harvesting yam, cassava, and corn. Yet, despite his relentless efforts, prosperity seemed to evade him. Other men in the village, with less land and fewer years of toil, built grand houses and drove big cars. Jealousy brewed in Odian's heart like a dark storm. One evening, while nursing his frustration, a stranger appeared at his door. The man was mysterious, with cold, calculating eyes and a deep voice. "I have heard of your struggles," the stranger said, "and I know how to end them. Riches, power, influence all can be yours if you are willing to make a sacrifice." Odian, desperate and blinded by greed, leaned in closer. "What sacrifice?" he asked. The stranger's gaze was piercing. "You, and those who are closest to you." Odian's heart froze, his family, but the image of what flashed in his mind an opulent life, a mansion in the city, no more endless days of labor under the scorching sun. He hesitated for a moment, then asked, "How much will I gain?" "More than you could ever dream," the stranger replied. "The ritual will be simple, but irreversible. You will lose those you love, but in their place unimaginable riches will flow to you." That night, Odian tossed and turned, the weight of his decision heavy on his soul. He looked over at Efua sleeping peacefully, her face calm and unaware of the turmoil within him. He thought of his children, their innocent faces laughing and playing in the yard, but the lure of wealth kept gnawing at him. Days turned into weeks, and a mysterious man returned again, each time promising more and more. Eventually, Odian's resolve broke. One fateful night, he led his family deep into the forest, under the pretense of seeking a cure for a sudden illness that had struck Efua. There, in the sacred grove, where no one dared to go, the ritual began. The stranger's instructions echoed in Odian's mind. The gods demand a heavy price. With trembling hands, Odian raised the knife above his wife. But as he prepared to strike, Efua opened her eyes. She saw the knife, the fire, and the stranger's cruel smile. Horrified, she screamed, but her voice was drowned by the deafening silence of the forest. At that moment, something stirred within Odian. His hand froze in midair, the weight of his greed crashing down on him like a mountain. He had almost caught the woman who had stood by him through all his struggles. The thought of his children, now waiting nearby, filled him with dread. But it was too late. The ground beneath them trembled. The stranger's form began to shift, transforming into a dark, menacing figure. "You made a promise," the figure hissed, "and now the gods demand their due." Odian dropped the knife and fell to his knees, pleading for mercy. But the forest had already claimed its them. Shadows swirled around Efua and the children, and in a flash of dark light, they vanished, leaving Odian alone. The silence that followed was haunting. Odian staggered back, calling out for his family, but only the echoes of his cries returned. The stranger, now in ethereal form, hovered above him, eyes gleaming with malice. "Your wealth will come," the figure whispered, "but it will be as empty as the hearts you have destroyed." True to the stranger's words, Odian returned to the village and found his farm overflowing with crops, gold coins mysteriously appearing in his hut, and villagers suddenly treating him with respect and admiration. But none of it mattered. He was alone. His home was silent, and every corner of it reminded him of the family he had sacrificed for fleeting wealth. In time, Odian's wealth rotted away, and so did he. The once proud man became a shadow of himself, haunted by the ghosts of his past. The price of darkness had been paid, but the riches it brought were hollow and cold. And so the story of Odian spread far and wide, a cautionary tale of greed and the cost of sacrificing what truly matters for wealth. In the end, he learned too late that some sacrifices are too great, and no amount of gold could fill the void left by the love he had betrayed.